This is my reaction to the UFC 271 press conference, which just took place. I thought I'd give a breakdown on some of the key moments, and also just a general assessment on how I thought the press conference went. Who were the fighters in attendance? Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, Derrick Lewis, and Tai Tuivasa were the 4 fighters on the stage, and I thought, why not Cannonier and Brunson? They would have been a good addition to this press conference, in my opinion, because, again, this wasn't the best press conference in the world. There were no big moments where 2 fighters got up and started running at each other, and Dana White had to get in between them and break it up, or there were no moments of trash talk, really. The most aggressive moment that there ever was Israel Adesanya being somewhat passive-aggressive to Robert Whittaker, but in general, he was quite respectful of Whittaker. Whittaker was very respectful of him because, of course, Whittaker lost the first time, so how could he really sit up there and start trash talking? Because, 1, he's not that guy, he's Robert Whittaker, so I didn't expect it anyway, but 2, Israel Adesanya beat him the first time, so what's he going to say? I'm going to KO you, well, you didn't the first time. I'm going to beat you, well, you didn't the first time. So Whittaker was very respectful. Adesanya was quite respectful as well. I thought he'd go a little bit further on Robert Whittaker to try and amp up the fight and get under Whittaker's skin a little bit more. But other than that, it was just a bit of passive aggressiveness. A couple of one-liners from Derrick Lewis. Tai Tuivasa trying to get everyone on stage to do shoeies, even though they didn't even have any alcohol, which was a very awkward moment. But let's start straight at the beginning. Adesanya saying the generic pressure makes diamonds thing that every fighter has to say at least once during a press conference. I don't know why. Maybe it's in their contracts or something like that. Like, hey, we're going to do a press conference, but someone needs to say pressure makes diamonds if anyone asks them about pressure. Otherwise, it's not a UFC press conference. Is that clear? And Adesanya's like, I'll do it. You know, like he'll be the one who says it this press conference. So he got that line out the way. And then Adesanya also claimed afterwards, and here's the passive aggressiveness that I was talking about. He was saying how he saw the pressure on Whittaker and how he felt for him a bit and stuff like that. And apparently he lives in Whittaker's head rent-free and stuff like that. And then Whittaker just responded very respectfully afterwards and didn't really say anything whatsoever of any substance, just basically like, oh, yeah, you know, he won the first fight. What can I say? You know, I've trained and got better. Some generic stuff that doesn't build up the fight whatsoever. But I'm okay with non-trash talking press conferences. I just don't see the point in having a press conference if they're not going to talk trash. Like, it was basically an interview, but with just 4 people. And they both just answered questions, and not really much went on in terms of talking between each other. Tai Tuivasa and Derrick Lewis had a couple of back and forths. They were very respectful. Of course, Derrick Lewis said he wants to KO Tai Tuivasa with all respect in the world because they like each other, I guess. And Tuivasa was looking to do the same thing, and they kind of amped up the crowd that they're going to go out there and slang and bang in the first round, as they said. And then Tuivasa bought everyone presents. Samoan Santa Claus, Tai Tuivasa, came prepared with the presents, immediately bought everyone, I believe they were like shoes, but with like nozzles on the end, like beer tap things that you could put in the end of them. I think that's what he was doing by the end of the press conference. He was just sort of showing off his new product that he has, I guess, and I mean, that's a genius marketing move. You're the guy who drinks beers out of shoes. Why wouldn't you have some kind of merch where you have a shoe that's made for you to drink beer out of it? I guess that makes some level of sense. Derrick Lewis said something like, I'm not putting my mouth anywhere near that, which got a couple of laughs out of the crowd. But again, Tuivasa brought the presents, which led to Dana White almost being peer pressured into doing a shoey, which never actually ended up happening, which was very strange because that would have made this press conference a little bit better if we had that moment where Dana White did a shoey for the first time, and it would have been a fun moment. But there's no alcohol. Well, there was someone with an alcoholic drink, but they couldn't get up on the stage, so it just never happened. I mean, that's 0 for 2 on Tai Tuivasa, trying to get UFC staff members to do shoeies. Failed against Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan wouldn't give him his shoe. And then also failed against Dana White. That never ended up happening. Dana White got out of that one very clearly. Of course, the Mac Life presenter tried to throw back to it later on in the interview or the press conference by saying that, hey, you feel a little bit parched up there. Maybe you should do a shoey or something. But Dana White's like, what? No, I'm not doing it. Okay, cool. Let's just leave that one alone. There's no alcohol or anything like that, which, you know, ill-prepared. There should have been a can of drink on hand for a potential shoey to happen. Tai Tuivasa's at the press conference. How did they not think of these things? But other than that, Israel Adesanya defended Joe Rogan on the controversy. That was probably the biggest headline-capturing moment on the entire press conference, other than something Derrick Lewis said at the end, which we'll get to. But Of course, Joe Rogan used the M-word in context a couple of times in his career, and also made a joke about black people, which you can't do nowadays. But yeah, it was very offensive. So people are having a bit of a meltdown. But, you know, most fighters and people who have a logical brain are completely over it and don't really give a fuck whatsoever. Israel Adesanya is one of those people as well. Said that Joe Rogan is his N-word, which I will not say to avoid the same fate as Joe Rogan with the backlash. But either way, he said that Joe Rogan is his N-word at the end of it, and also said that who cares, Joe Rogan's one of the nicest people he's ever met. There's so many snakes in this game and Joe Rogan's not one of them, and everyone cheered behind that because of course they're in Texas, which is now Joe Rogan's new home, I believe. So pretty pro Joe Rogan crowd, and rightfully so. Let's move on from that whole fucking topic. And also, why is it even being fucking brought up at the press conference? There's 4 fighters on the stage: Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, Derrick Lewis, Tai Tuivasa. Like, why are you bringing up Joe Rogan, media member? You've got your time to ask these guys questions, and immediately we're talking about something else to try and get a gotcha out of Dana White. I'm glad Adesanya stepped up and took it, because I don't think Dana White's response would have been as effective because, of course, the complexion of his skin. But yeah, Adesanya said, I'm black, I'll handle this question and all that. So that got dealt with really quickly, and we moved on to other stuff, which was more of just, Adesanya's necklace. That was a decent moment of a bit of trash talk, a bit like the Jake Paul thing that he did to Tyron Woodley, where he had that thing of the robot with the screen playing Woodley getting KO'd over and over again by Nate Marquardt. And of course, Israel Adesanya had a little video on his necklace, which was an NFT or something like that, of Robert Whittaker just getting KO'd over and over again. So they had the mandatory bringing up of an NFT at the press conference, quota filled. Good for them. The reporters did their job. Must mention NFTs at least once at every UFC fighter press conference. I guess that's going to be a trend moving on forward. But that was a pretty cool moment. Whittaker didn't really bite on that either. He just sort of laughed at it and chuckled along and said, hey, he beat me the first time. I can't really say anything. What do you want Whittaker to do? Open himself up and then it becomes a trash talking thing and then he loses because Adesanya beat him? You can't beat someone in trash talk who's beaten you before in a fight. It doesn't make any sense to do so. I didn't have too many high hopes for this press conference, but nothing really much happened other than that. Izzy was reasonably respectful of Whittaker. I've got some notes here of some stuff that went down. Of course, there was no beer for the shoeies, so nothing happened there. Also, Adesanya just threw his gift into the crowd at the end, so I don't know how Tuivasa feels about that. I mean, it's not like Tuivasa's his nan or anything, so he's not going to get all upset about Adesanya not accepting the gift for his present. But, you know, Adesanya threw the thing away. Whittaker brought his. I think Derrick Lewis forgot that his even existed, so only one person ended up getting a gift from Tai Tuivasa, I guess, and Dana White, of course, as well. Other than that, Izzy was asked about Blood Diamond because, of course, Tuivasa, I don't believe, got a question other than one. So we need to hear about Blood Diamond, who's Izzy's teammate, I guess, who's making his debut, has a bit of hype behind him. I don't get that, man. If you've watched Blood Diamond's kickboxing career, this is some fucking bum. Like, he's good at kickboxing. He did good, and he has a good record, of course, and he's won some competitions and stuff. But he's not good at all if you actually watch his kickboxing fights. So I feel like people are talking about this like it's Alex Pereira coming over, but it's not at all. It's just some random kickboxer guy that just so happens to be Israel Adesanya's teammate as well. So they spoke about him for a second, put some promo on him. The camera panned to him in the crowd, smiling at what Izzy was saying. So that's good for Izzy to big up his teammates a little bit more. The media members were asking about Brooklyn non-stop, like we didn't know what state we were in. Just talking about Brooklyn and how it feels to be in Brooklyn. I mean, I'd imagine it feels exactly the same as every other city on the fucking world because, you know, it's just a fucking city with pavement, and here we are. I don't know what special's going to be about a certain place, but Dana White has to big up the place of Brooklyn, so that the crowd can be... No, it's Houston. Why do I keep saying Brooklyn when I mean Houston? It's Houston. They kept bringing up Houston. Lewis is there, of course. Derrick Lewis is his hometown in Houston. He's the guy from Houston, so the crowd got behind him, and they just sort of pandered to Houston for a little bit, saying how amazing it is, and and stuff like that, which they kind of have to do at these press conferences to get the crowd on their side, and then they can start building up the crowd afterwards. But other than that, one media member asked for barbecue recommendations, and Derrick Lewis said, "That's racist, by the way," and it was a funny moment. He didn't mean it, of course, it was just a joke. He said that's racist to ask a black guy for recommendations on a barbecue place, like they all know the best barbecue place, kind of joke type thing. That was quite funny. It was good timing as well. Derrick Lewis has got some really good timing on some of the stuff that he says. The little one-liners out of nowhere never fail. But yeah, that was it actually. I thought I'd have a bit more to discuss. That was actually it. Oh, media asked about Khabib. Why? He's been retired for a year. Asking about Eagle FC. Tuivasa, I don't believe, actually got a question. I might have to go back and check, but I don't believe he actually got a direct question that wasn't just an add-on from a Derrick Lewis question. But they need to ask about Khabib's Eagle FC promotion. Hey, are you meeting with Khabib later this week? Like, this is ask Dana White when you, like, go past him backstage type of shit. Not like in the middle of a press conference specifically designed to build up this fight at UFC 271. Make sure you ask about Khabib and Eagle FC. Like, and Dana White, of course, gives the response that anyone with a brain could guess that he would make to that, which is, you know, we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's always that. Like, why do they need him to say that at a press conference? Like, oh, I don't know. I know I'm a media member and I should be asking questions to, you know, the champion who's on the stage right now. But man, I really need to see Dana White say, we'll see what happens. I just can't let this press conference go unless I hear Dana White say those words. It's like some dumb shit. Oh yeah, and the whole stream fucking crashed for Tuivasa and Lewis's stare down. I watched it on the Mac Life, but UFC slacking. As soon as Tuivasa walked up the steps, maybe he stepped on a wire, maybe the vibrations that his atomic self caused shook through the stage and hit into the speakers or the network mainframe underneath and disrupted a few things, who knows. But it came back too for the Adesanya and Whittaker stare down that they had. But yeah, that's that really. That was it. That's how they promote the fight. Adesanya being a bit passive-aggressive. Said the pressure makes diamonds line and I'm shining. Has to be said at least once. Joe Rogan controversy. Yeah, that was literally it. The whole thing. That was it. Yeah, I don't like the press conferences, man. Especially when there's only like 4 fighters on there and you know they're going to be friendly. Like, what's the point? Get Brunson and Cannonier up there. Brunson and Cannonier. Fair play, Cannonier would have been boring and said something about his fucking pebbles that he rubs before he goes to bed and shit like that. But like, maybe Brunson and Adesanya would have went back and forth if Brunson was there, and maybe he would have taken a jab at Adesanya, but no questions about that breast on Izzy's chest, though. That's weird, isn't it? Isn't that weird? How there's, like, a fighter who's grown a breast, like, and it's here again. It was gone for a bit, and then it came back a bit, and it was a bit smaller, and now the full-blown breast is there again, and not a single media member is curious about what that might be. It's almost like they know what it is and know that they shouldn't really be asking that question because they might not get a good answer or an answer at all, or might lose their privileges to speak to Adesanya in general moving forward. But I don't know, I just feel like that'd be my most burning question. Like, hey, what the fuck is that breast doing on your chest, dude? You're a male. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, who knows? Like, hey, you're a male nowhere near puberty, in the prime of your career, as a peak physical conditioned athlete. Why did you grow a breast out of nowhere at the same time of a global pandemic? As soon as you started your title reign after your toughest fight against Kelvin Gastelum that you almost lost. But apparently no one cares to ask about that, which is weird. But that never got brought up. Interesting. Pretty dead press conference. Nothing too spicy. They just spoke about their feelings and that they're going to win and they're going to train and do their best and shit like that. 3 out of 10. Because Derrick Lewis's joke saved it at the end. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Click that button up there. And also, they covered their quota on at least 2 media members that ask questions have to be above the recommended chromosome amount of humans. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Click that button up there. Goodbye.